All right, going live here, waiting for people to come in the room. Got a lot to talk about today. New Congress started today. Vice President Kamala Harris gave the oath to all of the senators that were there, the new senators. We have actually a Speaker of the House. I fully expected today to be talking about how the House still had no Speaker. They were going to go into the weekend without one and what that was going to mean. But, surprise, they actually came up with a Speaker. So we're waiting now to see what actually happens in this new House of Representatives. Republicans once again have control. Mike Johnson will be Speaker, at least for now. I know they were hammering out a new rules package. I don't know if it has passed yet. Will be Speaker, at least for now. I know they were hammering out a new rules package. I don't know if it has passed yet. And that new rules package would change the threshold needed to oust the Speaker. And also change some other rules with that. Under the current rules or the previous rules, it would be one vote is all you would need to call for a motion to vacate the chair, and the entirety of the House would then vote on it. Now you need to have 9 co-sponsors, all from the majority party, which would be the Republicans. Democrats would not be allowed to call for a motion to vacate the chair. But they would still get a vote. And I guarantee you, the Democrats are not going to vote to save Mike Johnson. So we'll see if they pass their new rules package, then we'll see what they actually get to work doing. Mike Johnson did say today that one of the things the House is going to work on is they are going to not reinvestigate January 6th, not look into anything related to claims of issues with Donald Trump or any of the criminal acts he's been charged with or any of that. No, they want to investigate the investigators, and they want to go after the January 6th committee. So wasting more time. It'll be like the 2 years of the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden investigations, where after 2 years they come up with nothing, and their only main witness ended up being charged with lying to police and lying on official documents. So I don't think they're going to end up user says so it's like going after the judge who sentenced you. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of judges and sentencing, we got news today out of the Manhattan District. They want to, or Judge Marchand has ordered Donald Trump to appear in the Manhattan District next Friday, the 10th, to be sentenced for his 34 felony convictions. Now, it sounds like he's going to get, I don't know what the legal term is for it, but effectively a so he's going to be having to okay, user says he'll probably get an ankle bracelet. It was good because he can't go to any other countries anyway. I don't know if he's going to get an ankle bracelet. Don't know if he's going to get probation. Probably not getting any prison time. He might get a fine, but there's a legal term for basically we can't impose the sentence we want to impose on you, and that's effectively what he's going to get. I think they want to imprison him because 34 felonies of committing business fraud, and the fact that he has shown no remorse. He has constantly shown nothing but disdain for the court, for the judge, for everybody. JD says probably released unless he commits other crimes. Yeah, except they can't do anything while he's president, and that's their problem. That's the problem. DOJ memo says you can't charge a sitting president. Supreme Court decision currently says under current applicable law you can't charge a sitting president. So yeah, because of the immunity. And now that immunity is not absolute. It is only for things that are official acts. So, for example, despite people being mad at Joe Biden, yeah, Larry says January 10th, Judge Merchan sentencing will happen. It's going to happen, but he's probably not getting prison time. Don't hang your hat. Don't hold on to any sort of hope that he's going to get thrown in prison and that's going to keep him out of the White House. It sounds like that is not going to be what happens. Now, I don't think I've got TJ out there, so I got to handle my own moderation today. Yeah. So, just have to bear with me a little bit. But yeah, he's going to be sentenced on January 10th. Michelle says, no restrictions, no fine. He is guilty. Yeah, exactly. And he's going to probably get a slap on the wrist at best. But in this filing ordering Donald Trump to appear, you know, he can do it by a Zoom call, but he has to be there during the actual proceedings. That Judge Merchan laid into Donald Trump and his attorneys, basically said, you're almost crossing the line to where you could potentially be disbarred for all of the filings. You showed nothing but disdain for the court and the third branch of government, and just laid into Donald Trump about how he routinely has nothing good to say about the courts and the court system and the legal system and all of it. Michelle says the judge used some really powerful verbiage. He did. And that's why I think if Donald Trump would not be going into the White House, Judge Merchan would probably be sentencing Donald Trump to what would effectively have been a life prison sentence. Because even if he gets 10 years, 10 years would be a life sentence for somebody of Donald Trump's age and everything else. I mean, it'd be close enough. The thing is, with this all, Donald Trump likes everyone to think he's the smartest person in the room. And he wants you to believe he's so much more intelligent than everybody. He knows more than everybody. He knows everything about everything. Or he can learn it in 2 minutes. If he would have just put these in his bank records, in his business records, as the accounting, as non-disclosure payment, there never would have been any criminal charges. But because he had to be smarter than everybody and try to get around the legal system, they had this whole thing worked out where Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels' attorney. One storyteller says, "You are so right. The law is the law." Yeah, it should be. But if he wouldn't have had Michael Cohen pay Stormy Daniels' attorney and call it a retainer when it wasn't, and then if he wouldn't have tried to repay Michael Cohen as legal fees when it wasn't, and if he just would have put it in his books as non-disclosure payment, that would have been the end of it. There never would have been 34 criminal convictions. But if Merrick Garland hadn't sat on his hands for 2 years going after Donald Trump, for January 6th and the classified documents, then, the Manhattan District probably would have moved their case quicker and he would have been sentenced 2 years ago. Or he would have been sentenced for one of the D.C. cases 2 years ago, like he should have been. But instead, we find out after the midterms, when the J6 committee is wrapping up, and they're releasing all their information to the public, and the public's going, DOJ, hey, where are you at? Why haven't you done anything? He's like, oh, maybe I should actually start investigating that. And then we get Jack Smith. As one storyteller says, Garland failed us. He did. But for those of you that are familiar with the Rational Boomer podcast and how I joined the Rational Boomer on Lives, Will likes to say, Merrick Garland treated everything that Donald Trump did as some kind of a political action. He didn't want to view it as criminal. Well, that's ironic because when he was acquitted during the impeachment, the second impeachment, in fact, Mitch McConnell said, well, he's out of office now. It's not really a political matter. This needs to be handled by the criminal justice system. So Republicans wanted Democrats to save him from themselves, and then we get Merrick Garland, and he fouled the whole thing up. But we do know that he is going to be sentenced. Surprisingly today, the House did get a speaker. Ms. Indy says Garland gave too much leeway. It's ridiculous. Definitely. Like I said, quoting Will, he treated everything like it was political. Didn't want to go after it. Didn't want to go after Donald Trump. Didn't want to go after the guy that Joe Biden just beat because he didn't want to appear political. Instead, he wanted to look at it and go, okay, I'm going to be hands off here on this and, let the political process handle it instead. And this is where I miss TJ. Oh, well, I can handle it myself. But House did get a speaker, as one storyteller says, barely. And surprisingly, it was first vote. Now they held it open extra long. They went around. They gave people extra time, and they converted all of the 8 holdouts that they needed to convert in order to select Mike Johnson as Speaker, which is very surprising. I did not expect them to get a Speaker first ballot. I expected it to take, a lot of time. And it just didn't. And I think the reason it didn't is because they were afraid of screwing up the certification on the 6th. JD Farmer says, could this be a sign the GOP Congress will be better at passing legislation this time? No, I don't think so. Because they still left in the 9-vote threshold. If they pass the new rules package, I'm not sure if they've passed it or not. The new rules package for the next 2 years would change the vote to vacate the Speaker from a 1-person sponsor to needing 9. Well, if you count the 8 holdouts that they had to convert to make sure Mike Johnson got over the threshold, he could lose 1. They had 9 no votes. Well, 6 votes that said present, so they didn't actually vote either way. 3 no's. So at any point, those 9 could get back together and say, yeah, we want to oust the Speaker. And because Mike Johnson has screwed over the Democrats, just like Kevin McCarthy did, that they're not going to save Mike Johnson when it comes time for another Speaker fight. They saved him last time and he screwed him over. They had a deal on funding the government in December. JD Farmer said, so basically they got a Speaker so they can get Trump in and they may dump him later. Yes, exactly. They got a Speaker because they need a Speaker. The way the House of Representatives works is the very first thing they have to do on January 3rd, every 2 years, is select a Speaker. Until they get a Speaker, the House of Representatives doesn't exist. And they can do no business until they get a Speaker. Now, if they don't Mike Johnson say January 21st, the House can do no business again until they get a Speaker. And now they They were considering trying to pass something that would allow basically a temporary speaker, if they oust the speaker, to still conduct business. Yeah, they're looking at other ways because they know there is a chance they may not agree, and that they may ultimately have to find a way to get to still be able to conduct business even if they can't get to a speaker. Because Mike Johnson may have to find a way to get to still be able to conduct business even if they can't get to a speaker. Because Mike Johnson may get voted out at some point down the road. Now, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker 4 years ago under the Democrats, and before, as part of their rules package, because every 2 years they pass new rules for how the House of Representatives operates, there was no vote to oust the Speaker. As part of the rules package, they agreed that they would not oust the Speaker at all, and she took it out of the rules package. Blue Sky says, who do you think those dummies will pick for leader of the House? They already did. Mike Johnson. He succeeded in winning it first ballot, but it wasn't an easy win first ballot. Now, prior to Kevin McCarthy 2 years ago, it had been like 100 years since there had been a fight for the Speaker's gavel. Usually the majority party already knows who's going to be Speaker when they get up to January 3rd. And they go in, it's purely performative, and they have a Speaker. And then they normally don't vote to oust the Speaker. And that's kind of the thing I've noticed with, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Ever since Donald Trump, and more importantly, ever since 2020 when Donald Trump lost the election, there have been things that are normally routine and mundane and that people never talked about, didn't really care about the election. There have been things that are normally routine and mundane and that people never talked about, didn't really care about, that have had way more focus than before. In 2022, we had the fight for Kevin McCarthy to become Speaker of the House, where it took 17 ballots in like 4 or 5 days. And he had to basically give up the farm in order to become Speaker then. Like I said, first time in like 100 years prior that there was a fight like that for the Speaker's gavel. Sarge said, stupid Johnson won. Trump threatened the Repub-tard that didn't want to vote in Johnson. Yeah. That's because Donald Trump, he's only backing Mike Johnson right now, and the Republicans are only backing Mike Johnson right now because they want to make sure that come Monday, there's no problems with the certification. And that's what I was kind of talking about. 2 years ago, we had a fight for the Speaker's gavel. Had never happened in like 100 years. People never, you never heard about, well, who's going to be Speaker. Usually the media was covering it ahead of time, and they'd say, well, Mike Johnson's going to be Speaker. Okay, that was the end of it. There was never a talk about a fight. January 6th is going to come around Monday, and they're going to certify the election. Prior to 2021, when Donald Trump had this wild hair that Mike Pence could somehow change the results of a free and fair election by not certifying in certain states or whatever to make it so Donald Trump won election, by not certifying in certain states or whatever to make it so Donald Trump won, you might have heard a 30-second blurb about the certification Trump won. You might have heard a 30-second blurb about the certification, and they might have covered it like on C-SPAN, things like that. Iname says, not kicking you out for making crumbs. I don't know what you're talking about. TJ says, no Wi-Fi, can't help you right now. Just part of the flight. Oh, okay. Well, there's TJ. He's in for a little bit. But have a safe flight, TJ. So far, it's been pretty tame. But yeah, there have been things that were normally just routine that you didn't even, unless you really studied politics, really paid attention, you didn't hear about. You didn't hear about the speaker, them actually holding the vote for the speaker. A lot of people didn't know how that even went until 2 years ago with Kevin McCarthy, when they had 17 ballots to select him as speaker. You didn't hear about the January 6th certification of the vote. Not really. It was a formality. It happened. Then Donald Trump comes along, and all these things that are norms and usually just performance, and Donald Trump comes along, and all these things that are norms and usually just performance and to figure out, and they get a big giant spotlight shown on them because things aren't working the way they should. To figure out, and they get a big giant spotlight shown on them because things aren't working the way they should. Luzka says, I was hoping the infighting would delay the dreaded upcoming certification. I think the fear that would happen is actually what led them to get to Mike Johnson. I was thinking it could as well. I also had said that it was possible. You'd only need 3 holdouts. If this went on into Friday, into Saturday and late into Sunday, because every time it came up, Democrats 215 votes Hakeem Jeffries. That 3 of them could have said, okay, we got to get somebody in here that can run the House, and they could have crossed the aisle and voted for Hakeem. It would have been almost unheard of, but I could have seen it happening. Unlikely, but it was possible. But I think ultimately, I think the election gets certified. I think Donald Trump gets sworn in come January 20th, and after January 20th, I think then Donald Trump is on the clock, basically. He is a lame duck. He will be considered a lame duck for the entirety of his presidency because he can't run for office again. He might be able to help himself out with, if he has a good first half where he could end up helping himself in the midterms and get bigger margins, but I don't think that's going to be the case. If he does even a fraction of what he's talking about, I can only see it hurting him in the midterms. So he's a lame duck. Michelle says, what are your thoughts on his rally on the 19th? I think he's trying to get a bunch of people into D.C. That way they stick around for the inauguration on the 20th, trying to boost his numbers. And I don't know. We'll have to see what the 19th and what this rally brings, but I just think it's him trying to stoke excitement and get people to show up, because his crowds, he may not want to admit it, but the crowds at his other rallies were really dwindling, and I think he is worried that his inauguration is going to have very, very low attendance. Sober bartender says he wants his army there. Yeah, that could be. But why? He won. That's the thing. They are all ready for a fight. They come into comment sections. They say shit that has no basis in reality. Like this one that TJ just blocked, saying that Kamala voted for Donald Trump. That's just idiotic. If you think about it for more than half a second, you know it's dumb. But that's who these people are. Impala Joey says low attendance because they were all virtual electronic fake voters, not real people. I've heard a lot of people say it, but I haven't seen any evidence. I would love to see evidence that proves that. I think it's just low attendance because people are bored of Donald Trump. They say the same shit. He says it every single time. You know, his rallies, he'll talk for 3 hours and say nothing, and say nothing new that he didn't say the night before, the week before, the month before. But I think he just wants a crowd. He needs the adulation of those crowds, and I fully expect him to hold rally-style events yet, even though he can't run again, like he did his first term, just to get crowds around him and things like that. Help feed his ego a little bit. But since he is a lame duck going into his next term, like I said, I think he's on the clock. The Republicans are backing him at this point because he's not elected yet. The minute he raises his hand and takes the oath of office, then all bets are off. They're going to side with him when it's convenient. They're going to buck him when it's inconvenient. Brent says he has his court date on the 10th. He can tell the crowd to go meet him at the courthouse. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Now, it sounds like he's going to get sentenced on the 10th. And from what I was reading, it sounds like they are expecting the judge to issue whatever the legal term is for, we can't punish you the way we want because of your current situation, so no punishment. I think they want to imprison Donald Trump because, he has committed 34 felonies and he has never once shown an ounce of remorse, and he has shown nothing but disdain and contempt for the court and everything. So I think they want to jail him because of what he did and how and everything, but they're just not going to be able to. So he might get a fine or something like that, but it won't be anything nearly like what we were expecting. Don't get your hopes up that the court date is going to somehow prevent Donald Trump from taking the oath of office. He will become president. But as I've said numerous lives and TikToks, Republicans will only back Donald Trump until they can't, because they have to get reelected. So once they think he is going to be affecting their ability to get reelected after he takes the oath of office, fully expect them for them to start pushing back and saying no. Brent says, what about the house arrest with ankle monitor? Probably not going to happen. Wouldn't that drive him nuts though if that's what he's sentenced to? Because of his condition, he is sentenced to home confinement and his home being listed as Mar-a-Lago up until he takes the oath of office, and then it is the White House. If he can't leave the White House, can't go to a golf course. Oh, that would drive him insane. But I don't think that... TJ, safe flight. Thanks for joining for the brief bit you did. Does Trump actually want to do these crazy things? Kind of. Donald Trump wants to do some of the things that he says. The problem is Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of original thoughts in his head. Donald Trump will believe and think whatever somebody around him pats him on the back, tells him he's a genius and he'll look smart for doing this or that. And that's what he believes. Now, they're going to try to do some of it, but ultimately, they're not going to be able to do a lot with the margins they have, and because Congress needs to get reelected. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I could be doing TikTok lives and TikTok videos, etc., in a month, where we're talking about some of the craziest shit that has actually passed that Donald Trump signed. I just don't think it's going to happen. First of all, they got to get around the filibuster in the Senate. Take 60 votes to pass something past the filibuster. Don't think that's going to happen. So some of the most egregious stuff, they're just not going to be able to do. And in the House, they can only lose right now two votes, 2 no votes, and it can't pass. To do some of the stuff they want to do, they would probably need a majority of like 40 or 50 or 60 votes in the House. They just don't have it. And more than likely, if Donald Trump starts fucking around and wrecking the economy, they'll lose the House and the Senate come midterms. Juju says, howdy from Texas. Thank you for being a sound mind to keep me from going crazy. Well, thank you for listening. I'm glad you're getting something out of it. That's why I do this. Because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of false information out there. A lot of people don't know how everything works. That's part of why I break things down the way I do. I see a lot of people not understanding how parts of our government function, or what certain things do, or what the reality really is, because they get worried about the fear mongering, especially in the media. The media would hype up something crazy Donald Trump says, and then they turn around and either like, oh my God, this could really happen. But if you look at like where the majority sits in the House, they just don't have the votes. Let's see. Brent says you get your news from me and the Rational Boomer. Oh, yeah, Boomer's a great resource. I recommend everybody go check out the Rational Boomer. He breaks things down too, just in a different way than I do. I come with a lot of, like, I can remember where specifically in the Constitution it says it, or if I'm not sure, I look it up so that I remember that, yeah, this is where you find that. Where he goes more common sense, but still, very good resource. Juju says they've started to turn me into a conspiracy theorist and I hate it. Yeah, mainstream media can do some of that. Even some Democratic leaning and left-leaning creators on here who have latched onto some of these ideas have come up with some doozies, and it's not how anything works. But they're looking for any way around a potential Trump presidency, and it's just not going to happen. Absinthe Navrun says, do you think Trump will enact martial law day one? No. No, I don't. In part because day one he's going to be busy doing the inauguration. It's nothing but celebrating, and he's going to be basking in the adulation of everybody, and the focus is going to be on him. He's going to be too focused on that. Two, I don't think he even tries for martial law, because even this House, or even with this Republican Congress, they have to get reelected. And if he tries to send the military after American people for no reason, basically because he's mad and he's throwing a temper tantrum, that would be a bridge too far for him, I think. TKS Daddy says, wish Democrats would quit going with slogans that are lies like all 9 months, doctors had it in 24 weeks. I don't know what you mean by that. Trump is happy he's getting away with it and try ripping off more money. Yeah. He's going to be doing more grifting. He's happy he's got to win. Brent says he's no clue what to do in his role as president. No. He served 4 years as president. Still has no idea how the presidency works. But MAGA Republicans in general, the low IQ voters, they give him preferential treatment because he was president. They think because he held the office, he clearly knows more than like me. I know more about what the office of the president entails because I have the ability to learn. Donald Trump does not. He sat in the office before, but I guarantee you the bulk of it, he didn't want to learn how to be president. He just didn't. Michelle says, I think he wants to cause so much craziness that he can send in the military. Maybe. But I don't think if he tries to do that though, I think even the Republicans are going to say that's a bridge too far. They have to get reelected. They know that. They're going to back him until he's sworn in, and after that, all bets are off. Juju says, what about his pregame the 19th? I think he's just trying to get a crowd together. He wants to have a big crowd there for his inauguration because he wants the admiration and the adulation. He wants the cheering crowd. And I think he's worried he's not going to get a big crowd there. So he thinks if he holds an event the night before, he'll get people into town, they'll stay over, and then they'll come to the inauguration. TKS Study says all 9 months for abortions gives right their excuse. Yeah, but that's usually only in like the very extreme cases. And the problem with the people on the right with abortion, and I grew up in a very religious environment, very conservative, and I heard a lot of the talking points all the way around. And that was they use it. They convince people that women are purposely using it as birth control. Like it's their first option for birth control, and they don't understand that most women have many other options that are way cheaper, way safer, way less damaging to the body. All those kinds of things. It's not for most people a first line of birth control, but they've been lied to for decades at this point that they believe that lie. TKS Daddy says MTG needs remedial classes. Yeah, no idea how the government works. TKS Daddy also says he had to have visuals made for his daily briefing. Yeah, I don't remember which aide it was, had said that during his first term, they had to write, like, they would have to take 20, 50-page briefings and condense it to 1 page for him and write it in the way he speaks. So if they wanted him to be on board with something, well, if we do this, you look like a real winner, and give him a couple bullet point talking points about it, and that was about it. Or you need to, if you pass this, you would look like a loser, and a couple bullet points. That's it. He can't focus to read a 50-page briefing full of large words. It has to be written at about a 4th grade level. Trump will lose big come midterms. Yeah, I'm fully expecting Democrats to flip Congress in the midterms. Now, I was expecting a Kamala Harris win, but, we'll have to see what the first 2 years of the second Trump administration brings. However, I'm not expecting it, but on the off chance, let's just say, hypothetically, if on the off chance everything he says works exactly the way he says and everything he does works the way he intends, we know it won't. But if it all does, then maybe he gets seats and he picks up steam in the midterms. But if he does the things he says and it breaks the economy the way we've said it will, there's no way he doesn't lose both chambers of Congress in the midterms. Brent says, will Musk have access to confidential papers? I don't know. I don't know if he will or not. That's going to be up to probably Donald Trump as to whether or not he gets a security clearance. Because he doesn't have an official position within the government. I think Donald Trump can force the DOJ to give him a security clearance, but I don't think he would qualify for one naturally. TKS Daddy says, I think he's afraid of last-minute legal action. Entirely possible. He's probably afraid because there's a lot of people on social media and stuff talking about the 14th Amendment, Section 3, potentially keeping him out of office, or this executive order he signed during his first term. I think Donald Trump is terrified that something last minute is going to prevent him from being inaugurated. And I think that's why he wanted to make sure he kind of put his thumb on the scale of the speaker fight today to make sure that they had a speaker, so there's no issues going into the 6th for the certification and then the 20th for his inauguration. Teresa says, I hope it's keeping him up at night. That'd be hilarious. Has Trump only been using Truth Social? For the most part, yes. Bruce says, I am from Iowa. I am ashamed of the representation we have in Washington and in our state. Yeah, Iowa was on the path of going blue. We were purple for sure. And then the Republicans were getting worried they couldn't beat Democrats. Democrats were getting too powerful here. So for governor, they dug up Terry Branstad, ran that old fossil, and he just, I don't even remember who he ran against now, but he clobbered him. And basically ushered in the Republicans back in charge, and they've been in charge ever since. They crushed any chance of this state going blue for a while. And Democrats need to get together. They need to push for better candidates. They need to do a better job of everything, basically, here in Iowa. And there's a chance. I still think there's a chance we can flip Iowa purple in the next 2 to 4 years. Vegas Races. Do you think there's anyone to replace him from his administration? Do you mean replacing Donald Trump? No. There's no one to replace Donald Trump in the Republican Party. When Donald Trump is gone, when he's out of office in 2029, if he lives that long, when he dies, if it comes to a point when they can't control him enough that they have to impeach and remove him themselves, whatever they end up doing, ultimately, the Republicans don't have anybody to lead the MAGA wing of the Republican Party at that point. It's not going to be J.D. Vance. Sue says, I hope there's a plan in place to protect our confidential documents and national security from Putin. Yeah, I hope so. Vegas Ray says, Americans must be united. That's the only way to go. Yeah. And if Donald Trump breaks the economy and everything like as bad as it could be, Democrats could unite the country, similar to what we saw with FDR after the stock market crash in '29. And basically, for 20 years, Democrats completely controlled Congress and the White House, except for 2 years during the Truman administration. And then immediately, like, there's 2 years where Truman had a Republican controlled Congress. And then, like, right after it went back to Democratic control for like another 6. Um, TKS Daddy says, I'm still for SEAL Team 6 by King Biden. Trump is a paid off Russian troll. Yeah, don't think that's going to happen. Joe Biden is too old school for that. But based on the immunity ruling, Joe Biden would be well within his rights to do it, because that was the exact example they used um, in that court case. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Um, TKS studies said Trump has already stated illegal threats as president. Yeah, like I said, the Republicans are backing him now, but they will only back him up until the point when um, he's inaugurated. After that, all bets are off as to what they do. Every time he does something, they are going to be weighing whether or not it's going to hurt their reelection chances. Even if it's something they really want done, if they think or does you think they're gonna bring blue back? I don't know what you mean by that. I don't know what you mean by that. You talk about flipping Iowa. If they can flip Iowa blue again, I think they could. Um, that's what I. But I don't know what you're talking about. No, if um, or are you talking about what I was saying about having TKS Daddy says anybody who bothers to read honestly could be flipped blue. Yeah. Um, a lot of you know I routinely guest over on the Rational Boomer podcast, and I watch the podcast every day. Today's episode of the podcast has another guest, Old Soul. And Old Soul today on the podcast was talking about, I think it was an interaction um, she had with a Trump supporter, and that was uh, they weren't even aware, this particular Trump supporter wasn't aware that Republicans had had control of the House of Representatives the last 2 years. That's what we're up against. They don't even know what's actively going on in the government. Um, or even how the government works in a lot of cases. 2020 should have been a blue wave when he was in the White House. Yeah. I mean, it was a blue wave, realistically. it wasn't nearly as big as it maybe should have been, but Joe Biden won the presidency. We flipped the Senate when that was deemed as almost an impossibility. Hell, we got 2 Democratic senators out of Georgia. Almost, and that should have been impossible. And then they took the House. The problem is we needed 1 or 2 more senators that were blue to offset Manchin or Sinema. Imagine if they wouldn't have had Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema in the Senate, the 2 people who were Democrats effectively in name only, and voting against a lot of what the Biden administration wanted to do. Bruce is telling MAGA they're dumb to work for Elon. We need foreigners, can't help him. Yeah, that's the thing. There's a fight brewing between MAGA and Musk and MAGA, Musk, and Trump and stuff because of the H-1B visas. Now, the hardcore MAGA people, they want all immigrants out, regardless of anything. And Musk is saying, no, let's bring in the smart ones. And Donald Trump's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, now there's a fight going between it. And MAGA's pissed. They feel like they were betrayed, that they were lied to. And that's why I say after Donald Trump, MAGA's going to fall apart. TKS Daddy says, and Musk has more money to buy Trump, and Trump is a lifelong illegal immigrator. Yeah. The thing is, the money's only going to help Musk so far. There's going to come a point when their personalities clash. And if Donald Trump thinks Musk is upstaging him, the more we talk about President Musk and Vice President Trump, or President Musk and First Lady Trump, things like that, the quicker it's going to form a wedge. Between them, and ultimately, they're gonna end up going by the wayside. Imagine if we had a younger candidate in 2020, we might not have to deal with Trump right now. Oh, I don't think we needed a younger candidate in 2020. We just needed an attorney general in 2021 to do his damn job. We wouldn't have had to deal with Trump. Hell, if Kevin McCarthy hadn't gone down and kissed the ring after Donald Trump's impeachment, he probably would have stayed down there sulking. But the Republicans brought him back into the fold. And when he did, he became louder, more bold, because he realized that his actions weren't going to get consequences from the Republicans. If they would have kept shunning him, he wouldn't have ran in 2024. TKS Daddy says, we did Harris, but it was on short notice. Yeah. I think I'm not faulting Kamala Harris at all. She ran a great campaign, raised a shit ton of money, record-setting amounts of money, had a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of support. And the thing is, if she wouldn't have spent the last few weeks running around with Liz Cheney, I think that would have helped. And I think for a lot of people, some people were mad about how she became the nominee. They wanted either a fight at the convention or they wanted an actual primary or whatever. I would like to, if we could see an alternate timeline, I would love to see how events would have changed if Kamala Harris would have still ran, Joe Biden stepped aside like he did in July, But instead of just stepping aside, if he would have resigned the presidency and given her the office from July on and have her going in as the incumbent president, I wonder how that would have changed things. Would have been interesting to see. Let's see. TKS Daddy says if McConnell would not have led the treason caucus as usual, flip to old habits. Yeah. Well, McConnell, when they impeached Donald Trump the second time, he was the one that said, well, this is, he's out of office because they didn't conclude the trial till after Donald Trump's term was up. Said, well, he's out of office. This is really something that should be a criminal matter. So we should acquit him. If they would have held a spine and McConnell would have said, no, let's oust the bastard, they would have had the votes. He would have been gone. And history would have looked on McConnell a lot more fondly than they will now. I'm just going to wait for AOC and Chris Plante to join forces and get Dem ticket for 28. Could be an interesting ticket. Would love to see it. TKS Daddy says our media does not reach echo chambers anymore. We need to hold cable and sources accountable. Yeah. TKS Daddy says you should also have to be news to have news in your name. No fraud. Yeah. That's the thing. The fairness doctrine is gone. And places like Fox News can say basically whatever they want in favor of making money. And they don't have to report anything that's truth or factual, and they call it news. I was traveling with my dad year or so ago. And actually I wasn't really traveling. We were in a hospital because of... we were in a hotel because my mom was in the hospital. But anyway, we were in a hotel. And he was flipping stations and came across Fox News. And I couldn't stomach to watch it. He goes, what, you don't want to watch the news? He believed that because it had news in the name that it was news. And that's just not the case. There really should be more to that they have to be, actual news, not whatever the hell you want to call Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, places like that. TKS Daddy says if the DOJ did its job over 30 years ago, Bill Barr would have been a felon from Iran-Contra. Yeah. TKS Daddy also says, too bad Katie Porter lost her spot. Yeah. And that's the problem. You're dealing with California. You could have probably found anybody in California to run as a Democrat and keep the seat. But the Democratic establishment wanted Schiff. Katie Porter wanted the seat, so did Schiff. Well, they ran a primary, but in order to run in the primary, they both had to not run for re-election in the House. So you lost 2 voices out of the House of Representatives when you didn't need to. And we gave up Katie Porter. Either shit, it's just ridiculous. Bruce says Katie Porter is actually from Iowa. Her parents still live here. Well, maybe she should come back and run for, senator in Iowa. Maybe we can get rid of, I think Joni Ernst is up for re-election next year, or in midterms. Maybe she can get the Senate seat for Iowa. That would be great. Get rid of Joni Ernst, or hell, run in 2028 and get rid of Grassley. Dems should have had Harris heard and seen more the last 4 years. Basically, the limelight. Yeah. They should have given her the spotlight from the minute. Bruce says, we're stuck with Ernst for 6 years. She ran this year. You sure about that? I thought she was up next year. It's entirely possible, because I would have voted against her either way. I just don't remember voting against her. I'm pretty sure it's next. I do know Grassley's up in 2028, but he has already filed paperwork to run again at 95. Mark McKinday says Chuck Grassley won't make it. Oh, that'd be great. I don't really want anyone to die, don't get me wrong, but dude's 91 years old. I really don't want him running again at 95 because he would probably win. And I've been hearing what the plan is with Chuck Grassley is that at some point they want to have him retire, have Governor Kim Reynolds replace him with his grandson Pat. That way when you go in the voting booth, you'll see the name Grassley and the voters will just keep voting for the same, thinking they're voting for the same Grassley that they've been voting for their entire lives. And end up voting for the grandson, and we'd be stuck with him for a lifetime. Let's see. TKS Daddy says 4 million U.S. territorial citizens did not have a vote. If they travel, they would have. Yeah, and that's half the problem. I know there was a referendum trying to get Puerto Rico to start the process for statehood. Now, I don't expect Congress to do anything about Puerto Rico becoming a state the next 2 years, but the president doesn't have to do anything in the statehood process. So theoretically, if Puerto Rico moves forward with everything to become a state, if the Democrats get Congress in the midterms, they could theoretically add Puerto Rico around President Trump, and that would be interesting to see. Addison says, we're not stuck with him for a lifetime. It's 4 years. We can get through it. He's one of the most horrible human beings, but we'll get through it. We just have to breathe through this. I think we're talking about two different people. I was not talking about Trump. When I said we'd be stuck with him for a lifetime, I was referring to the grandson of Chuck Grassley, because the plan is, at least from what I'm hearing here in Iowa, is at some point for Chuck Grassley to resign and retire, because he's already 91 years old, and have Kim Reynolds, the governor here, appoint Pat Grassley, his grandson, as the replacement, and we'd be stuck with Pat Grassley because people would just keep going back voting for Grassley thinking it's the same guy and it's actually his grandson. Bruce says, you're right, Joni is up for re-election in 26. Yeah, okay. I thought I was right on that. Addison says, but how do I feel about Trump? Oh, I hate Trump. I do, absolutely. He is a horrible human being, but he's also very weak. He's very limited. He doesn't have a lot of power, not as much as he thinks he does. He can't get reelected again. And as I've said earlier in this live, he's going to be on the clock. He's a lame duck as soon as he takes the oath of office. And if he gets too far out of hand, Republicans may be left with no choice but to remove him. And if he fucks things up too badly in the midterms, Democrats are going to retake both chambers of Congress. And he really will get nothing done. Most of the egregious and dumb shit that he wants to try to do, it's not his idea. He's been told by somebody else that these are good ideas and people will think he's smart for doing them. He's a very low IQ person. Listen to how he speaks. Listen to the words he uses. He speaks and talks at about a fourth to sixth grade level at best. And that's why he resonates with the MAGA crowd so much. They, let's see, he speaks like one of them, so that's why he resonates. He doesn't talk like an educated person. Our system is so messed up. Imagine if another Trump-like candidate manages to get a supermajority. I don't think there'll be another Trump-like candidate. And I think what you're going to see is after Donald Trump is out of office and all of it, I think you're going to see one, maybe two, constitutional amendments added. Probably something big as far as changing the eligibility to be president. I think you're going to see something put in there about being a felon. If you are a felon, you cannot be president. I think you're going to see some changes. I think it's going to happen after Donald Trump is out of office. Kind of similar to how we got the 22nd Amendment in response to FDR being elected 4 times. I just do. I think you're going to see some of that. Some of the norms that Donald Trump has liked to walk all over, I think you're going to see them enshrined into actual law as a matter of response to Donald Trump. Now, whether or not they pass through all, if they try to pass these amendments through the states, I don't know. Now, if we could, TKS Daddy says, now if we could force punitive taxation to recoup Reagan theft from Social Security. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? If they could just recoup the money that was borrowed from it. And Trump's tax breaks. Yeah. Hell, add Bush's tax breaks in it while we're at it. It's funny. They want to talk about, a lot of MAGAs want to talk about making America great again. And they want to talk about strengthening the middle class and going back to when the middle class was really strong. And a lot of times they're talking about the time period, basically 50s to 70s, maybe early 80s. And that was at a point when, the richest 1% of the country was taxed at 93%. And they still made ridiculous amounts of money, but the government had the money to do everything it needed. We were on the right track. Hell, during the Clinton years, we had a budget surplus, and we were actually starting to pay down the debt. Scott says, and unions were strong. Yeah, when in the 50s to 70s, when the middle class was strong, the unions were strong. And that's the era when a lot of them want to go back to. They want to go back to all of that strength. But yet, they don't understand where the strength came from. That it came from strong unions. It came from all of that. They want... they believed the lies that Reagan told about gutting the unions when he basically busted the air traffic controllers union and started really weakening unions. And they started saying how unions were just making everything more expensive and that unions were the problem. In part, I think, if maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm way out in left field here, but if we would have had modern technology during the Reagan administration, social media and all of that, Reagan probably would have been a one-term president. And we probably would still have had the strength of the unions and all of that going, people didn't have the ability to fact check nearly as well as they do now. But of course, you never know. I mean, hell, I would love to see the timeline in which Jimmy Carter got a second term, because everything after would have everything after a Carter second term would have been different. Reagan probably wouldn't have ran in 84. I don't know if Bush Sr. would have ran in 84 instead of Reagan. And how all of it would have played out. It would have been different. I would have loved to have seen that timeline, but unfortunately, as of right now, we can't do that. Yeah, TKS Daddy says they talk about Social Security with its current surplus being short. Ultra rich pay payroll on a week a year. Yeah. Carlita Sway says, what would Republicans do if Trump gets impeached again? Would Republicans be afraid of his base? Well, here's the thing. For the next 2 years, if Donald Trump gets impeached again, it's Republicans impeaching him. They have the House. They have the Senate. If you're probably facing a situation where if they move to impeach him, they probably wouldn't move and hold an impeachment vote in the House if they didn't already know they had the votes in the Senate to remove him. It'll be similar to what happened in Watergate. Nixon didn't resign because he was afraid of the Democrats removing him. He resigned when the Republicans said, hey, they called him up and said, look, we got the votes. We can remove you from office. You can leave, you can resign, or you can be thrown out of office, basically. And ultimately, Republicans are going to have to make the choice between whether, even if they piss off his base, they still know, like, is pissing off the 20 or 25% of Republican voters that are his base, is that going to worry them enough because they've gerrymandered so many of their districts? Are they going to be worried about losing their seats, or are they going to be more worried about losing their seats if whatever he's doing is causing more harm than it's helping? TKS Daddy said Nixon even did treason with Chennault's wife behind president to get highest office. Not entirely sure what you're talking about with that one. But Nixon doing something underhanded and shady wouldn't surprise me at all. Carol Sue says maggots won't vote to remove him, not unless Vance is put in. Well, that's the thing. That's what would happen. They would vote to remove him to put in Vance. And everyone's worried about how bad Vance could be. The difference is with Vance is smart enough to know what he doesn't know and listen to people. Vance is way more controllable than Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a wild card. You don't know one day to the next what he's going to say, what he's going to do, where his focus is going to be. Chennault's wife was the connection during war for Nixon to go behind president's back to extend. Oh, okay. But yeah, the Republicans in Congress, after Donald Trump takes the oath of office, they're only worried about their own power at that point. They are not going to be worried about being loyal to Donald Trump. Not nearly in the way that Donald Trump wants them to be. All right. Well, I've been going a little over an hour here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to thank you all for joining me. We made it through another one. For those of you that came in later or whatever, I'm going to let you guys know, like I do every live, I will be uploading this to my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan, over on YouTube. I do encourage you to check it out. If you missed part of the live, it is up, or it will be up over there, so you can catch all of it that way. Check out my other videos. I have some longer form videos about how different things in the government actually work. I put all my TikToks up there. If you're ever wondering why you haven't seen my content, because TikTok likes to bury my stuff for some reason. Usually it gains traction about 12 hours after I post it. So if you ever wonder if you haven't seen me for a bit or seen anything new, check my YouTube page. I usually try to get them posted. Not always the quickest, but I try to get them up there as quick as I can. And again, Analytical Iowan on YouTube. There is a link in my bio to my link tree. Where you can find me everywhere. Not the best at posting to Clapper. Trying that out a little bit. Trying to get into a rhythm of posting over there. I'm Analytical Iowan over on Blue Sky as well. So just some other options to find me. And then also on the bottom of my link tree, I do have a link to other affiliated creators. That's where you can find a link to the Rational Boomer. You can find TJ. You can find Will, one of the guests that joined us on the multi-guest lives with the Rational Boomer. A few other creators. So as I get more creators that I come to know and deal with, I'm going to keep adding names over there just as a way of making it easy to find people and connect with people. So I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to keep doing more of these lives, and I will catch you the next time I go live.